People often ask us, how do you decide which story goes where on SportsCenter? Well, first off, it's not just us. There's a whole crew, and everybody gets a say.
But it's mostly us. Here's a clip from a real live show meeting this morning.
All right, everybody, we got lots and lots of things to try to get into the show. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do to get everything in. I think something's got to come out. Probably going to have to come out from baseball. One of these highlights is just not going to make the show. Guys, what do you think?
To me, it's the Yankees. I feel like we lead with them every night. Let's not do the East Coast bias for one day on SportsCenter.
You know what? People think of them as the evil empire.
Yeah.
You're right, not having a great season. What do you guys think? Show of hands, the Yankees highlight does not make the show today.
Come on, Darth. We're always leading with the Yankees, and it's not Yankees-Red Sox September. This is Yankees, no offense, Kansas City fans, Yankees-Royals. It's the one time we could go...
You know what? Darth makes a good point down there at the end of the table. Yankees back in, guys? What do you think? There it is. Typical show meeting. All right, so
Hey, we
Yankees
busted out here.
Royals, episode 3. Oh, yeah, we are getting ready for a huge Saturday in sports. So much excitement. Tiger Woods with a share of the lead at the halfway point of the U.S. Open.
Cameras away. Cameras away.
Unbelievable.
Quiet, please. It's 2012. This is going to happen. All we're trying to do is throw it out to San Francisco. John Anderson anchoring our coverage of the U.S. Open with Tiger on top of the leaderboard.
Ladies and gentlemen, now on the first tee, our SportsCenter anchors, David Lloyd and Steve Bunin.
What do we got, Zach? All right, we'll go driver. I don't know, moving day at the Open, Tiger's on top. I'm feeling pretty good about this SportsCenter.
Yeah, you're hitting driver. That may be a mistake.
I
You
bought
got
it.
the honors. Let it
All right,
rip.
here
Go
we go.
ahead.
I'm right there in a good spot, so looking forward to it.
My first concrete father-son sports memory growing up in Seattle, it isn't him taking me to a Seahawks, Mariners, or Sonics game, although he did. It's of him coaching me in youth soccer. He was no Alex Ferguson and I was no Pelé, but he was there for practices in the rain, for the rides home, for games in cities that seemed so far away to a 9-year-old, but really were 2 exits up the highway. Sometimes just being there, that is the best gift a father can give to a sports-loving child. Jeremy Schaap explains.
Believe it or not, even for those of us who work in the world of sports, Father's Day signifies more than just the 4th round of the U.S. Open.
Good morning and happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. I am standing next to a great one, and Steve Bunin, his little girl Gabriella, I'm sure has big plans for you later today. I'm John Walsh's daughter. I'm calling after the show.
I'll call too, not to your dad, to mine, Alan Bunin.
Makes
happy
sense.
Dad's Day. It'll be a very happy Dad's Day for somebody at the U.S. Open, but it doesn't seem likely it'll be Tiger Woods. With more from the shores of the Pacific, John Anderson anchors our coverage.
Some of the other guys, it may have a much greater effect. One other thing, Johnson told me during practice here yesterday that temperatures inside his race car reached upwards of 130 degrees.
Wow.
Imagine that for 3.5 hours, Steve.
Yeah, and no potty breaks, so this is going to be an interesting race. First green flag at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central. That's all I can think about. You're talking about loading up right before the race, 3 hours stuck in a car.
I'm already sweating, man.
Marty Smith burning up here on SportsCenter.
After winning the title, don't miss the best moments from their victory tour. And
ESPN has built a replica of center court at Wimbledon, which is way cool. Coming up, something that's not. The grunting and shrieking in tennis that's gotten out of control. Makes it so much harder to serve. God, missed it again. One of the great things about ESPN is that occasionally they'll turn a patch of grass into center court at Wimbledon. One of the great things about Wimbledon, the traditions, the whites. You can't play in anything else. The chair umpires refer to the players as Mr. and Ms. If the queen is here, you bow or curtsy. And then there's a new tradition in tennis, shrieking and grunting getting out of control. Many of today's top stars, especially on the women's side, simply cannot play without verbal histrionics that have gotten so loud, some fans are starting to tune out. Kelly Naki reports. You can see Kelly's entire piece tomorrow on Outside the Lines at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. Now, there is a hindrance rule on the books, but it's pretty vague, so the WTA is instituting a plan to phase out overt grunting. ESPN's John McEnroe, famous for his verbal histrionics, "You cannot be serious." That happened at Wimbledon in 1981, but that was never during a point. Here's what McEnroe has to say about overt grunting in tennis today. Back on SportsCenter with Cindy Brunson, I'm Steve Bunin. We're a good combo. Some of the great combos in sports history. We're not there yet. We're working on it. Magic and Kareem in the NBA, 5 championships, 8 NBA Finals appearances in 10 seasons. Baseball, hard to top Ruth and Gehrig, the Babe, the Iron Man, 4 World Series together in 5 World Series appearances. In hockey, also sort of a no-brainer, Wayne Gretzky and Mark Messier, they dominated the ice in the 80s, winning 4 Stanley Cup trophies in a 5-year span. Gretzky traded after that 88 title, although they did get together for one more season with the Rangers. And, of course, in football, Montana to Rice, arguably the 2 best players ever at their respective positions. They won back-to-back Super Bowls after the 88 and 89 seasons. And look who joins us here on SportsCenter, Joe Montana. Happy to have you here in Bristol, Connecticut. You're here on behalf of ESPN's Madden Legends Week, powered by EA Sports Arena. It comes out at midnight. So this is the first time I've been watching your interviews that the Legends, if you're playing, a Legend can play against the current team. So you got 4 kids in their 20s. Okay. You think they would pick you and play against the current team, or would they pick a current team and try to play against you and beat you?
Well, my guess is they try to beat me. Knowing my one son, he made a team all of just him already. So,
what was your reaction when they approached you and said, "Hey, we want you to be a part of this"?
Well, I think it's a great idea. First of all, there's always a fight for this game, and when it comes out, as you said, tonight at midnight. And so Andy from EA and I have been around here, hitting all the shows, trying to get the word out that it's coming out, and talk a little bit about the new things that are going on, and one of them is being able to play as a legend. Yeah. And it does a couple things for us older guys, kind of gives us a new look at the game and gives other people a look at our careers and maybe build a younger fan base at some point in time before we cash it in, right? But it's been a lot of fun. There's some really new, exciting things also along with it. A new engine that drives it, that makes it a lot more realistic, and one of the great things is Connect, and the voice controls is pretty sweet.
When you were college age, you're coming out of Notre Dame. Take us back to that first camp with the 49ers. You remember the first time you took the field as a pro? What was that like?
Well, it was a little bit intimidating. I was taken late in the 3rd round, and so I was just happy to be there, and I'd gotten to an organization that was. I thought I had a good opportunity at some point in time. How much I didn't know, but I knew that at 2-14, I would have at least some window of having a chance. And it was awe-inspiring because at the time OJ had come to the team or had been there for a year, and you had seen him so many times doing his things, and but. After a while, after the first couple weeks or so, you get used to everybody, and then it's just another training camp.
What were your expectations for your NFL career as a 3rd-round pick?
I didn't really have any expectations at that point in time. I went there with going to give it every opportunity I could. I had no idea how it would turn out, but I knew that it was something I dreamed of as a little kid, and now I had the chance, and I didn't want to ruin it. So I wanted to give it every effort that I possibly could. And then from there, you just kind of go and see how it goes.
So midway through your 2nd season, you became the starter. When did it click for you and you felt like, I can do this at the NFL level?
Well, it took some time, really, because there were times in the season where, especially the first one, where I remember we were playing the Cowboys in Dallas, and they were beating the living dog out of Steve DeBerg. And Bill's on the sideline, and he's starting to substitute, right? And so he was like here, and I was right behind him. And so when he was looking to put people in, so he would turn and I would turn. He would turn, I would turn. He wasn't catching my eye because it was pretty brutal on Steve. But there were ups and downs. And, you know, I get a first start in a preseason game. I remember that I threw 2 interceptions that were run back for touchdowns, and the guy had the nerve to run me over on the one to get into the end zone for the second one. So, you know, it's like always. It's a struggle in the beginning. You know, you're learning a whole new system. You're learning a whole new style of play with a whole, you know, a lot of new guys, new faces.
What do you consider your greatest accomplishment as an NFL player?
I think one of the biggest things was after my back surgery. I had back surgery early in the year in '86, I think it was, '87. Too many hits in the head
to remember.
But I played 7 weeks later after the surgery, and so I mean I almost was ready to give it up until the doctor said, "Hey, you'll be fine. It's just a matter of how fast you want to come back and play." And once he said that, and my wife would ridicule me every day, I got lazy and say, "I guess you really don't want to play." And you know, to the point where it helped motivate me and got me back as fast as I could.
And if you now could go back and give that 23-year-old Joe Montana in his first camp as a Niner a piece of advice about what would transpire over the next 20 years, what would you tell young Joe?
Well, sometimes what happens with young quarterbacks is like they want to go in and make a big splash right away and do things that they don't do or can't do consistently. And you know, give it time. Let things happen for you. Go in and try to establish a rhythm. Get complete passes. I don't care where they are. Just get yourself some confidence as a young guy. But I was fortunate that Bill kind of brought me along that way. He put me in situations that I should have success in. Not that you would, because you still got to go out and do it. But he put me in pretty good situations.
Well, you certainly made the most of it. One of the most successful quarterbacks of all time. Again, the game comes out tonight, midnight Eastern. We appreciate you joining us on SportsCenter. Joe Montana.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Garrett is flexing his left leg as the Yankees come out to take a look.
Another injury for the Yankees, who keep churning out high-quality results like Steve Bunin. More on the Bronx Bombers in a bit, but let me just say without a doubt, there is no other SportsCenter anchor who is more experienced with sports injuries than Steve, and it has nothing to do with the fact that his wife, Viviana, is a doctor. Few of us can truly empathize with the athletes and their pain quite like the man to my left, and we have
my career highlight here today.
Proof. Unbelievable. My esteemed colleague is playing with pain today, as a matter of fact. He has a broken right elbow, which was just confirmed this morning. He has had 8 fractures or dislocations since May 2006.
I look like a klutz. I'm actually quite capable athletically. I just keep having these random injuries.
Yeah, and you're probably wondering why we selected this month and year. Well, our graphics department said they actually have work to do with real athletes that actually have multi-million-dollar implications.
And they ran out of space on the screen. So I'm either the toughest or weakest.
And that's not including Matt Millen giving you a broken hand.
Yeah, he nearly dislocated my shoulder again. All right, so I would fit in great with the Yankees, that's for sure, whose injury-plagued roster added another walking wounded last night, Mark Teixeira, who says he might miss 2 weeks with a strained calf. I never miss any time with all these injuries.
That's true.
ESPNNewYork.com's Andrew Marchand has more. Ouch, from the Bronx.
This is a major loss for the Yankees because if you look at the schedule, they play the Blue Jays the next 2 days, and then it's the 2 teams that are chasing.
He do on the field is just unbelievable.
Instincts, quickness, vision.
I had accomplished many wonderful things in my 10 years, and that's more so what I focus on.
It's a pinch me kind of week here for a lot of these sportscasters here at ESPN. Joe Montana was here yesterday. And Barry Sanders is here today as part of ESPN's Madden Legends Week, powered by EA Sports Arena. Brand new game came out last night, and people say you had video game moves. How would you describe your running style?
I would say that, you know, I was sort of a speed back, you know, with you know, sort of pretty good power, a decent combination of power and speed, and kind of elusive. You know, those are probably some of the terms I would use.
Where did that running style come from?
I think it came from just always being like the smallest guy on the field. and it came from watching other great running backs play. You know, I watched all the greats play as a kid in the NFL and in college. Tony Dorsett, Walter Payton, Billy Sims, you know, the list goes on. And so I think it's probably a combination of those things.
Of all those guys, the reason, at least for me, that I loved watching you play was another one of my favorite NFL players, Steve Largent. Every time both you guys ever scored a touchdown, and you scored about 200 combined, you just handed the ball to the referee. Why did you do that?
Well, for me, you know, my work was done, you know, and I felt like, you know, that's what I'm there to do, score a touchdown, and it's done after that. There's no more to do, you know, so that's kind of the approach that I took.
Where did that humility come from?
I think it came from my family. I think it's probably more so even the time that I grew up in, and you know, just play the game, very simple. Do what you have to do, and let your actions and your play speak for itself.
Who would you say has been the most influential person in your life?
I would have to say between my mom and dad, it's a toss-up. My dad was a huge sports fan. My mom didn't know much about sports. Sports-wise, you know, I definitely got my passion for the game from my dad. What
do you think your life would have been like if he wasn't that passionate about sports?
You know, I don't know, because you know, from a very early age, you know, I assumed that passion from him for sports and that competitiveness, and so you know, I don't know what impact that would have had. You know, I think I probably would have still played, you know, but it certainly would have had some impact.
Every parent thinks their kid is special. When did you realize you had something special as a football player?
I think it wasn't until I was well into college that I figured I would have a opportunity to play after college. You know, I wasn't heavily recruited out of high school, and it wasn't until much later in my high school career that I got a scholarship, played different sports, you know, and that kind of thing. And so it was pretty late for me where I realized that I'd have a chance to play in the NFL.
And what was the turning point when you got to Oklahoma State? What changed?
I think for me, what changed is you watch several guys get drafted. You watch a couple guys that were decent players, you know, to go on and have NFL careers and things like that. And so I think that's probably when the reality set in that I would have an opportunity.
In all that you did accomplish, college, NFL, what do you consider your career highlight?
Oh, I don't know. I was fortunate to have a lot of great highlights, and I think winning the Heisman was certainly the year that my life changed. That and also rushing for 2,000 yards in my 9th season, you know, kind of officially put me in an elite group of running backs.
What was the hardest point of your football career?
The hardest point probably was just, you know, being able to deal with a lot of things off the field, the demands on your time and things like that away from the field. As a young player, you know, there are a lot of requests, a lot of demands, and things like that. A lot of things asked of you, and so dealing with those things off the field probably was the biggest challenge.
Well, now you have 4 sons, and I asked Joe Montana this yesterday. He also has 4 kids. In this game, you can play as Barry Sanders against current teams. You could also play as current teams against Barry Sanders. What do you think your kids would be more likely to do? Play as Dad or try to beat Dad?
I think that they would probably try to play as Dad.
Yeah?
I like to think that, you know.
Funny, Joe said the opposite. He said his sons would try to beat him as video Joe Montana.
Right. I think they try to play as Dad because they obviously didn't have a chance to see me play. Yeah. The younger ones didn't, and so that's what would be my guess, anyways.
Well, it would be an honor for any of us to be able to play and emulate the running style and accomplishments that you had. The game is now available. Barry Sanders, an honor to have you here on SportsCenter.
My pleasure.
So again, yesterday Joe Montana, today Barry Sanders, tomorrow another Hall of Famer as ESPN's Madden 13 Legends Week continues. Warren Moon joining us live in studio.